welcome back to my channel. My name is Landon and we are here again today for some more notes reading. Y'all, we have made it through the wilderness. You know, we made it through. Not really. It's like we made it to the entrance of the wilderness, and now that we're in the wilderness, the real story starts. Penelope, I knew you'd want to come in. I tried to get you. Sorry about that. Tried to get Penelope in here and she was like, no, and now all of a sudden, change your mind, huh? Anyway, you may notice that the setup is a little different right now. I did get a chance this weekend to kind of go through and clean my shelves a little bit. I realized it was a lot of clutter and a big thing was happening with my camera losing focus a lot of the time. Y'all don't really see it a lot, but I would have to like manually adjust it because a lot of the stuff in the background was catching it. So I'm hoping that by number one, decluttering the shelves a little bit, I have a new BTS setup shrine thing in this area. I might show y'all. It's intense, but I like it. I like it. Also, I added another table behind my table so I can bring my camera back a little bit. Maybe that'll help some. Lastly, I added these little extra lights. So I used to have one light just shining on my face, and I got two. So am I brighter to you? Am I brighter to you? Yo, I figured I would attempt to see what this was like on one of these notes videos because, you know, they're not the most popular on my channel. So if it doesn't work out and it looks bad, at least not too many people will see this. Anyway, today we'll be reading the notes for Map of the Soul Persona. As per usual, each album comes with 2 unique notes scattered throughout versions for each member of BTS. And we're going to go through those beaches and read them today. See if we can get anything new. And as usual, probably not. Probably not. Let's see. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know. I think I might be. I feel like I'm so high up. I feel like I'm about to touch the top, which could be a good thing. I don't know. Let's see. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead. Oh my God, I've been watching too much Game of Thrones. No British. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and read some notes, y'all. Alright, so as per usual, we're going to go through these and read the notes. We're going to start this time with Seokjin. So the first one was, of course, part of version 1. And there were 4 different versions you could have got, 1, 2, 3, or 4, of Persona, which will be opening soon. Don't worry about that, little baby. But also, the person that did this on Twitter, shout out to the translator. Amazing job. They did do this thing where they split up some notes into 2 different documents, so it was a little complicated to kind of find them all, but let's go. The first note we have today is Seokjin, June 4th, year 22, my best friend's birthday. If you enter my father's study, there's an interesting painting, a precarious wooden raft atop the surging waves of the open sea. People abandoned there with neither food nor drink, neither compass nor hope, people who, out of thirst and hunger, fear and loathing, honor and greed, suck each other's blood and kill each other, and in the process kill themselves too. Yeah. When I was young, I was so afraid of this painting that I didn't go into the study. I even wondered why my father would have hung such an awful painting in the wall. But as time passed, the painting gradually became just a part of the study, not the subject of fear or concern. So all these little childhood fears, y'all ever had those little paintings in your houses that you would like be scared shit of? And then like 7 years later, you're like, oh, what's up, Bozo the Clown over here? Like literally there's a picture of a clown in my guest bathroom back in my parents' house. And I'm like, unnecessary. Instead, I developed a different fear. That was the fear of the room on the other side of the door. Inside the study, neither the door nor room was anything special. It wasn't locked with a padlock or code, and what I lay behind was only an extension of the study. If there were anything special about it, it was only that it had a lot of books. Bitch, what's a study? What you could do there, okay? Don't be scared of that. The bookshelves were packed with papers and books from my father's high school days, and onward I called that room the interior room. The interior room was a place where my father could go alone to gather his thoughts or come up with new ideas. And other than him, nobody else went inside. I had gone inside the room only once, and even though I was young, I had known that wasn't simply a study full of books. At a glance, the books placed into the particular order and the carelessly stacked books and documents only seemed to be human. I felt no warmth from the paper, and there was no emotion even in the paintings or photographs. Even just standing in the center of the room and looking up at the bookshelves, I felt a sense of intimidation that made my whole body feel as if it were crumbling. So he's over here looking at these books and feeling so scared. What is this? What is this about? What is happening right now? I don't remember there being any commotion over me having, oh wait, his dad might have books in there relating to what the F is going on. Possibly. I don't remember there being any commotion over me having entered, although there may have been one, but from some point onward, I stopped going into the room. Once or twice, I went as far as to stand in front of the door, but I only looked up at it for a second and didn't even think of turning the knob. Does this have anything to do with Seokjin, like following the apple into that room? Probably not. No. All right, the next one is going to be Seokjin. This is his second note from version 1, May 30th, year 22. I only had one hint, the map of the soul. Here we go, baby. The map of the words that were unfamiliar, which gave me not the slightest idea of what it was or what I was supposed to do with it. Even so, I needed a starting point for something, and I hoped that the map of the soul would be that for me, but it wasn't so. I made countless loops and did plenty of searching about the map of the soul, but everything slipped through my hands. Looking back, this time this all started had been that way too. Do you think you can fix all your mistakes and wrong and save everyone? When I had nodded my head in response to this question, I had no idea what I would suffer. So he is now like realizing that it's going to be at a cost, maybe? That's what I'm kind of thinking. I turned away from the dusty, covered books that filled the shelves and left the used bookstore. When I went up the stairs into the alley, cherry blossoms were flying. I suddenly felt like I had been here before, and I looked behind myself. The basement entrance of the bookstore was dark, and the sign wasn't even visible. Maybe I had confused it with a different bookstore. I had come to countless bookstores and libraries to search for a hint about the map of the soul. There wasn't much to say about what I'd found. Combing through bibliographies and keywords on the internet, maybe in that process I had visited this bookstore too, or at least a bookstore like this one. So we can see him really going around and trying to figure out what that clue meant. I headed towards the car at the entrance of the alley. I started the engine and put my hands on the wheel, but I didn't know where I had to go from here. All right, so he's out here searching and stuff. That was back in May 30th. So May 30th, and then the June 4th is when he's talking about his father's study. Now the last note we have from Jin today is from version number 4, and it's a two-parter here. This is August 9th, year 21. I took photos as I walked along the beach. The look of the beachfront neighborhood was constantly changing, but the ocean itself looked the same no matter what. I got out of the car and walked down the shore. I sat on the sand and looked at the pictures I'd taken. The locations and times were different, but the pictures themselves were the same. The sky and the sea touched in the center of the photo. It'd been a year since I fled Sonju and came to LA. My mother's family's house, where I had spent my childhood, was neither strange nor familiar. Hiding my emotions and smiling a little awkwardly, after a place for me was found, the way to become a good person that I had learned from my father. In most cases, these things were useful, and this was no different. After coming here, I didn't take photos of people. There was no particular reason, I just didn't want to instead. I took pictures of the ocean. Maybe I wanted to take photos of something that didn't change. It's funny, looking back, it wasn't that my friends had changed, and it wasn't that I had changed. I had always been that kind of person, and now I had just gotten caught. I didn't bring a single photo from high school with me. The me from back then was too different than the me of now. I didn't hide my feelings, and I had no reason to find a place for myself. The awkward smile looked the same, but it was different too. Back then, I was smiling for real. I lifted my camera and took a photo of the ocean. It was cloudy and the sea and sky were the same color. The horizon was blurry of all the many photos I'd taken in the ocean. There was no photo that was the same. The weather was different, or the light or the wind. My gaze was different, or my heart was different. This was also true of the photo I took today and of the many photos I took during high school. A photo contains the gaze and heart of the person taking it, the soul. Maybe that was the reason I hadn't brought any photos from that time. I was afraid to look directly at the me of back then. I was afraid I would miss the person I was, how they were doing, what did they think of me. I was afraid I would wander, things like that. But I had put their photos in a box and closed the lid. Okay, Seokjin over here, it looks like he went back to LA and he's just trying his best to forget about it all, but also still research a little bit more. Seems like he's gone through a lot of trials and tribulations trying to figure out what to do, and he's just stumped. So he had to flee? I don't know. Okay, the next one we'll be reading today is Yoongi from version 1, the first note. May 2nd, year 22. Oh gosh. They told me the scar would last for a while. They said I would slowly recover with time, but that the scope was limited. I would only improve if I kept receiving treatment. On the 3rd day after my hospitalization, the doctor took off the gauze and revealed the marks left behind by the fire, the flesh of my left arm, so dark the red was almost black. Oh. Graphic. I meant to say trigger warning. Sorry, guys. It was my body, but it didn't seem like my body. It was unfamiliar. When I had dropped the lighter, I had been ready for something even more than this, but it felt contradictory. For me to have only a scar like this, yeah, like he's going to be reminded of it over and over. This will hurt a little. When he started to change the dressing, blood seeped from the wound. The blood soaking the white gauze seemed just like a flame, like the secret flames that day, roaring like they had meant to swallow me. I tried to hold back, but the groan escaped. The doctor said that the blood was a good sign, that is proof my new skin is growing underneath the dead skin. Even though it hurted, I couldn't help but laugh. Why are new things only possible after death? What would it have been if I had died then? Could that have been the only way to start things anew? Over anew? I looked down at my arm, blood oozed through the new gauze. I called that blood stain a fire, and the doctor called it a regeneration. Whose words were right? Yoongi, listen to the doctor. It's fine. You're going to be fine, buddy. Come on now. All right, the next one is Yoongi version 1, the second note. March 15th, year 19. We're going back some time. Lunch was especially good that day. It was weird because it was just an ordinary school lunch. I didn't show it. That kind of thing didn't suit me. As usual, I sat carelessly in my chair and held my utensils between my fingers like I couldn't be bothered to lift it. But today's lunch was definitely good. Taehyung and Jungkook were raising a fuss about getting some sunlight, hitting the curtains, and changing their seats. And there was dust in the air. Namjoon shouted at them to at least be quiet while we were eating. I held my spoon as I thought, how long had it been since I'd eaten this comfortably? With his boys. He could eat with his boys. Y'all know they love to eat together. For as long as I remembered, there hadn't been a conversation at our family's table. No one said the food was good or asked for more or said they'd eaten well. To our family, meals were no more or less than something we had to do as part of our daily routine. Min Yoongi, no talking at the table. I didn't remember exactly what my father had said to me. All that remained was this huge sound of his utensils as he set them down. He hadn't raised his voice or gotten angry. No, he hadn't even been looking at me. Even so, I shut my mouth. I cut off my own words and instead stuffed a huge bite into my mouth. Then I bit the inside of my cheek. That's the worst. That's the worst. I tasted coppery blood. It hurt and tears came to my eyes, but I didn't say it hurt. I couldn't speak at the table. I forced myself to chew the bloody rice and swallowed. I don't like it. Someone stole a side dish from my lunch tray. I scowled in spite of myself, but I wasn't happy or annoyed. That was just my normal reaction to everything. Hoseok called out, Yoongi Young is mad. Taehyung, what are you gonna do? And Taehyung made a show of being overly sorry. It was a very Hoseok and Taehyung-like thing. Hoseok, oh, look over here. Yoongi looks like he's sad. Tae, maybe you should help him out. And Tae goes, okay, hey, you know, like, I'm sorry. Let me stop. This is my fan fiction in my head. This doesn't need to be on camera. Not a bit out of place despite myself. I bet out it's fine, you eat it. But another noisy round of talk and laughter burst out. Nobody realized that I had spoken during a meal. So it's like one of those moments where only Suga knows it, and like he's having this like realization with himself, but it wouldn't make sense to other people in context because they haven't experienced what he's experienced, maybe? I don't know. We'll see. All right, the last one for Yoongi is from version 2, June 23rd, year 22. When I saw that there were notifications in our chat room, I opened my phone. At some point, it had gotten dark outside. It was so easy to put together all the music I had scribbled out until now. I sorted through the ones that had survived the fire and the melodies still in my memory. Surprisingly, among those, most of them were the ones I had made in the storage classroom in high school. Even looking back, it didn't seem like I'd work on that much music during that time. Back then, no, at any given time, I was always running away from music. I opened the chat room and saw that there were already quite a lot of messages. The one who had made the chat room was Jimin, surprisingly, and it seemed like they had already been talking before I was invited because the conversation started in the middle. Taehyung asked everyone, do you know what a map of the soul is? It took a long time for Hoseok to answer, what's that? He said, it's my ego, bitch. No. Hyung, if I knew, would I be asking? Taehyung said. Good point. Then why are you asking? They went back and forth like this for a while before Jimin explained the whole story. That he had gone to the hospital and on the way back ran into Seok Jin Hyung, who said he was looking for the map of the soul. A long while later, Namjoon appeared. He said, Seok Jin Hyung asked me that too a while back, if I knew what the map of the soul is. He said the map of the soul was the way to end all of this. After that, the conversation didn't continue. Maybe we were all lost in thought. What was the thing that Seok Jin needed to end? We had all guessed that Seok Jin Hyung had become a little strange, so if he found the map of the soul, would he be okay again? What on earth was it, and where could it be found? The conversation that picked up later went like this. Nobody invited Jungkook to this chat room? Jimin replied, I thought about it, but Jungkook is still hurt. His answer was murky and unconfident. Suddenly, I wondered why Jimin had gone to the hospital. What was he feeling? Having visited the hospital, he was locked up for so long. I closed the chat, but I opened it up again and wrote, okay, you did well. Let's let Jungkook rest a little more. Maybe Suga's also not ready to face Jungkook. I don't know. I'll have to put this back into the timeline of things. Okay, anyway, that was Suga. All right, now let's move on to Namjoon's notes. This is version 1, the first note, June 15th, year 22. I looked down at the kid eating ramen in a hurry. Why do I have to say it like that? Why'd they put a Y in it? That's what made me say it like that. I looked down at the kid eating ramen in a hurry. He was 8, maybe 10 years old. He looked up at me sometimes as he scarfed down the warm rice and noodles. I asked his name and he told me it was Wu Chang, song Wu Chang. He spilled some ramen broth on his dirty t-shirt, wiping at it with his fingers, muttered that he was going to get scolded by his grandma again. The first time I saw Wu Chang was around 2 months ago. I was coming back from the gas station and I saw him standing standing in front of the container behind mine. At the time, I thought he had come through looking for a shortcut to get out of Songju Station. The container town was no place for a kid to live, but a couple weeks later I saw him in an empty lot next to the containers, kicking an old soccer ball around on his own. And since then, I'd run to him several times. He was always wandering around by himself, wearing the same shirt, same pants, same sneakers. It was obvious that he didn't have an adult to take care of him. I couldn't do anything about it. I had my hands full taking care of myself and all the other boys. I was passed by and pretended not to know him. Roomy, I know. He's just like, I don't want to take up a holding the leader role. I'm not even doing great in this one. In real life. You're doing great in real life. The character one, a little iffy. Y'all all kind of messed up, so there's really no one to blame. When I left the gas station and headed back towards the container town today, it was just a little past 11 at night. As I rummaged in my pockets from my Kev, I saw a crouching shadow. It was Wu Chang. I could have ignored him like I always do. I could have found my key, opened the container door, and gone inside to make myself ramen and sleep, but I couldn't do that today. I didn't want to. I looked up at the sky. It was gloomy all day. The night sky was full of gray clouds. I couldn't see even a single star. Suddenly, I felt hungry. If I remembered right, I had only one ramen left in the container. I didn't have any in stock, and I didn't have enough energy to stock more. Those are my circumstances. I looked down at the key. Is it a key? I looked down at the key. I take it out of my pocket. Why did I say Kev earlier? It's just this font. Out of my pocket, I remembered the scenery I looked back on as I left the countryside. I thought of the words I'd written on the bus window. I walked towards Wu Chang. I must survive. So he's over here like, if I'm telling myself I must survive, I must be the one to help others survive. Alright, so this is Namjoon version 1, note number 2, May 2nd, year 18, going back. As we entered the alley, I saw furniture and household goods piled up on the street. Namjoon, what's going on? My father asked, breathing with some difficulty. We were on our way back from the hospital. It was only 100 odd meters from the bus stop to our house, but my father struggled even with that. I ran towards our house. My mother was crouched against the wall behind the piles of household goods, and when she saw me and she straightened up, Namjoon, what should we do? She said that she had fought with the landlord's son who had come to collect the rent that my younger brother hadn't paid. I brought my father to the storeroom behind the neighborhood supermarket. As I moved the furniture, my mother cleared up the dishes and food items soon. Soon the storage room was full of all the things from our 2-room apartment. There were things I wanted to throw away, but to do that, we needed money. When it was all done, it was nighttime. My back ached and I was sweating. My mother gave me chopsticks, telling me to eat at least a little, but I couldn't force anything down. So this must be when they got evicted, maybe from his place, and they were moving into the storage container or something. Oh. Not the storage container, storeroom. It was stuffy in the storeroom. So I went out to sit on the wooden benches by the supermarket. My mother asked, Namjoon, where did Namjoon go? I shouted back, how am I supposed to know? Namjoon, Namjoon, Namjoon. I was tired of it. I regretted telling him to live without being discouraged, even if we could withstand a few days in the storeroom. What were we supposed to do after that? I couldn't think of anything. The supermarket, Jussie, sat down a can of beer and went back inside. Okay, a little bit more of a look into Namjoon's life with his family. The last one we're going to go over with Namjoon today is from version 2, The Unique Note. This is June 12th, year 22. The town in the countryside was just as I left it, unchanged, aside from the season having turned. It was exactly the same. In order to avoid the shops and the riverfront, I purposely gave the town a wide berth and headed toward the rest stop instead. The road was mostly uphill, the sun was hot and made me sweat. A scooter overtook us, kicking up a cloud of dust. Taehyung gave a hacking cough and grumbled to himself. In the distance, I could see the curve where the accident had happened. So is this Taehyung really went back, or is this the boy that looked like Taehyung? Wait, no, because it's horrible because he's no longer with us, the boy that looks like him. So, okay, now I'm just confused. By now, there wasn't even a sign left on the wayside. Taehyung dropped to his knees as if someone had collapsed there and looked down at the asphalt. On the bus on the way here, I told Taehyung about what had happened several winters ago, the competition at the Riverside restaurant, the snowflakes falling from the cloudy sky, Taehyung's injured face, the moment as the scooter slid when all the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, Taehyung's accident and death, and how easily the accident had been resolved and forgotten. There were things I couldn't say. How Taehyung's face looked when he said he had something to ask me. All the moments that I had lived in this countryside town, and the fact that I called that friend Taehyung. Hyung, let's not die. Let's not. How about that? Let's put that priority on the list, you know? I looked down to see Taehyung looking up at me, his hand pressed to the asphalt. I tried to think of something to say, but nothing came to mind. It seemed like under Taehyung's hand, I could see Taehyung. No, that friend from the town, lying on the white lines. There was no one in the world who would be okay with dying that way. Someone had died, but nobody had taken responsibility, and nobody had really mourned him. Of course, I had been the same. Let's go. At my words, Taehyung picked himself up. Where are we going now? Instead of answering, I said, when we went to the beach beach a while ago, you said you had something to ask me, didn't you? Let's talk about it. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Don't y'all dare. Don't y'all dare. Finn and Raimi, when they're falling into that little cave thing that's really like quicksand on that planet. Finn's like, Ray, I've always wanted to tell you this. You know what I mean? And it's just like they never say anything again. Anyway, hey, that's me. All right, y'all, we are moving on to Hoseok. The first note from him in version 1, May 28th, year 22. We didn't really keep in touch once we came back from the ocean. There wasn't any special reason for it. Hyung and Taehyung had argued, and Jungkook left a different way. But that wasn't why we became estranged. Then, what was the problem? Even so, I didn't contact anyone first. The fact that there was no special reason seemed, in some ways, to be the reason itself. When I look back on that day, I always remember the sandy wind that it had suddenly started to blow. After Hyung climbed up to the platform and Taehyung followed him, the rest of us shaded our eyes against the sun and looked up. There was a sense of deja vu. Is it Tae followed him? Must be a different reality. What he said? Deja vu? Wait, what was it? Wait. There was a sense of deja vu. No, it's not deja vu. It's really happening, bitch. sorry. Like this had happened before, and underneath it, a strange feeling of unease. Hyung, about the beach we went to before, the place with the rock that grants your wishes. Doesn't this seem like the place? At Jimin's words, I looked around myself. It happened at that moment. It seemed like Hyung and Taehyung were staggering as if they were about to fall from the platform, and then the sandstorm started. A sandstorm on the beach? I covered my face with both arms and closed my eyes. I was afraid, anxious about what was happening atop the platform, but in a swirling sandstorm, I couldn't bring myself to open my eyes. When the wind faded and I lifted my head, I saw that Hyung was coming down from the platform. He was looking up at Taehyung, who was standing atop the platform still with his head hung low. When he reached the bottom, Hyung went to the car and left. I took a step forward, but there was nothing I could do. That night, we went back to Seonju. Since Hyung had left first, we had no place to spend the night and no transportation. Yeah, I was about to say, like, how do I get back? Namjoon was the first one who suggested we go back. Everyone looked disappointed, but we forced ourselves to walk. Maybe we had all wanted Namjoon to say we could continue our beach vacation as planned, but Namjoon said we should go home. And so our vacation ended. The ocean vacation we had so anticipated had turned out to be a disaster. Okay, sandstorm. Oh my god, wait, sandstorm from the video. Wait, it's just hit me again. I'm remembering it all, but I'm not connecting it yet. Wait, shh. I know it's somewhere. I know there's a video. Let's keep going. Y'all know I'm gonna have to do another recap video. Hoseok, May 10th, year 22. This is also version 1, the second note. When I came to my senses, I was walking along the bridge. Is this where he collapses? The sun was so bright that it had hard opened my eyes. I wondered how I had gotten here, but then I felt dizzy and my vision blurred. I wondered if my legs were collapsing under me, and the sounds of car horns coming and going assaulted my ears. At one side of my vision, I could see the black water of Yangjaishan. The auntie at the orphanage was the first person who comforted me after I lost my mother. She had been at my side when I woke up in the middle of the night with a fever, in my empty bed after a friend was adopted, when I woke in the hospital after a night's narcolepsy seizure from my elementary school entrance ceremony to my high school graduation. I mean, that was a hard sentence. Is it just all one? Punctuation is it's really hard to see on here. The auntie at the orphanage was the same person who comforted me after I lost my mother. She had been at my side when I woke up in the middle of the night with a fever, in my empty bed after my friend was adopted, when I woke in the hospital after the narcolepsy seizure from my elementary school entrance ceremony to high school graduation. She had gotten sick. The voice on the other end of the ordinary phone call had been that of a friend from the orphanage. I couldn't remember how I made it to the auntie's house. What I remembered was her house and her face through the open window. She was talking with someone, and then she laughed. That she was sick, that she needed surgery, that there was no hope. All of it sounded like lies. When we almost made eye contact, I hid myself. I felt like I would burst into tears if I saw her face. I felt like I would spit out words of resentment like, even you're gonna leave me? I started walking. It seemed like someone called to me, but I didn't look back. A large bus kicked up a wind as it passed me. Mom? I muttered as I watched the bus drive away. On the day I lost her, we had ridden that kind of bus. Would the auntie leave my side too, just like my mom? Would I lose another person who was so precious to me? I lifted my head and sunlight poured down. Then the world started to collapse. The sibilant noise of tires on the asphalt, the wind coming off the river, and all the memories I had, the auntie, all crumbled under the sunlight. I collapsed to the ground. So maybe, was that the moment that he collapsed in the video? All right, and our last one for Hoseok is from version 2, the extra note. February 25th, year 22. I thought to be like, that don't even exist, but that's February 29th. Anyway. My entire world changed again after my 19th birthday passed. I was no longer a ward of the state and I couldn't stay at the orphanage. I looked for my own place with the money I'd saved from working part-time jobs and from the stipend I got when I left the system. I couldn't bring myself to look near to Starburger. I tried going around near Songju Station, but there wasn't a much difference. In the end, all I could do was walk up the slope. It was a rooftop room at the very end of a dead-end street. So this is when Hobie's going to find his place. I dragged my thunking suitcase up the iron stairs. I spent more than 10 years at the orphanage, but I didn't have that much stuff. All I had to do was organize a few articles of clothing and pairs of shoes and arrange the furniture I bought at the recycling center. But moving is still moving. So by the time I could stretch out, it was already night. Even in February, there was a sweat on my back. When I opened the screeching iron door, a cold late winter blew in. I went out and leaned on the banister. I looked down at Songju. I tried to guess where the orphanage was. I followed the river along to the left. Sorry, I'm laughing because I'll tell you later. Then to the left of the clover-shaped sign, among all the neons and lights, I couldn't make the orphanage out. I lifted my head and looked up at the rooftop. It was all small, barely one room. It was shabby and poorly kept up. Hot as a sauna in the summer and made cold by drafts in the winter, but it was the only place in the world that was mine. A place where I could be myself, a place where I could be foolishly afraid or have hope that others would sneer at. Somewhere I could laugh all I wanted and cry all I wanted. Let's do well, I shouted towards the room. Of course, Hope would be like, all right, let's do this, bitch. I shouted towards the room. The place at the top of the city, nearly touching the sky, would be my new home from today onward. Rooftop rooms are generally less expensive than actual apartments and have cultural connotation of being used by people in poverty, people with financial resources. Interesting, it's so opposite here in America. You think about like the penthouse suite or the rooftop suite, you know what I mean? Or the penthouse, I don't know. Usually want to be at the top. Anyway, I was just laughing because it just came to my head for some random ass reason. Something just hit me that I didn't realize was hitting me. You know what I mean? Y'all remember that song? Obviously, everybody knows the Gangnam Style song. I just realized that he says Oppa. I don't know why in the middle of that thing, it just hit me that he says Oppa. And I know what that means now. And I used to just be going around singing, so Oppa Gangnam Style. So the whole song is him being like, I'm your Oppa Gangnam Style. Like, we're doing a Gangnam Style and I'm older. I don't know, I'm so sorry. That came out of nowhere. It just hit me. But now that I know what words mean, I cannot believe, okay, anyway. Okay, let's start with Jimin, July 24th, year 22. This is his first note. It says, I reached the container a little before we were supposed to meet. I was going to congratulate Jungkook for getting out of the hospital, but that wasn't all. I had something to tell Hyung. It seemed like something important, but also like something Hyung might not like. Instead of going into the container, I walked a little longer along the train tracks. A train passed and a strong wind blew. The platform filled with people and then emptied again. At some point, our meeting time had passed. I turned around and took a deep breath. There was no one in the container, only hot air heated by the summer sun rushed out as if it had been waiting for me. I was 10 minutes late, but I was still the first to arrive. What had happened to the others? Had something come up? Were they even coming? I turned on the fan and went into the container. Namjoon Hyung's container was too still and silent to suit the mood of the party. I got a piece of paper from the desk drawer and wrote, congratulations, Jungkook, then stuck it to the wall. It wasn't enough to totally chase away the rundown feeling, but it was better than doing nothing. 10 more minutes passed as I checked in our chat room that everyone was on their way. Trains passed outside the open door and the container shook as I looked at the world through that seemed to tremble. I thought about the time I'd opened the hospital door and run out without the Youngs, without Taehyung and Jungkook. Would I have been able to open that door? Just because the door is there or the door is open didn't mean just anyone could go through it. Wasn't Hyung locked up somewhere like that too? Wouldn't he be waiting for someone to knock on the door? Nothing was certain. I didn't know if it would help, but if these pieces we had fumbled for could become even a small clue. As my thoughts reached this point, the container door swung open and Yoongi Hyung had arrived. Alright, the little bit fashionably late Yoongi, but still not gonna be there last. We loves it. This is Jimin, second note from version 1, May 29th, year 22. A thin beam of light shone down onto the desk. It was a light that had finally bored its way in through the window where the academy's name was written. At the front of the classroom, the teacher was talking into a mic, but it didn't even reach my ears. I was sitting in the farthest rows of seats, in the corner with my head down as I wiggled my fingers as if I tried to catch the light that streamed between them. Nothing had been solved just because I'd left the hospital. Instead, it felt like I'd been taken several steps backwards. Even going to classes had been because of my mother's worries about what I would do without without my diploma. And her suggesting that I at least go to GED Academy. I had no response. Now I had nothing I wanted to do and nothing I could do. I had no desire to go to Academy. Taking up studying again was burdensome, but more than that, I was afraid of being among strangers. What would I do if someone recognized me? What would I say if someone asked why I hadn't graduated high school? I was afraid of remembering the times at school that I had pushed off into a far corner of my memory. So here we can see Jimin going to get his GED even though he doesn't want to, but he's also scared that he won't be able to accomplish anything in life, so he's putting his fears of the public and people in the back burner for the fears of his future, essentially. Alright, so this is Jimin version 3, December 10th, year 18. When my mom said we were almost there, I used my sleeve to wipe away the steam that had fogged up the car window. Through the window, I could see a sign that said Songju Jail Middle School, year 18. Okay, so this is going to the school. My mom had said that there were no more schools I could attend in Muncheon, and that I didn't know what a relief it was that Songju Jail Middle School had agreed to take me. I had transferred school so many times while in and out of the hospital, how long would I last at this school? While I was thinking, we passed through the school gate and into the exercise yard. There was nobody there. Maybe because of the cold, my mom parked the car in a corner with a swing and a set of chin-up bars. Gonna work out. I looked up at the chin-up bars as I got out of the car. When I look back on my childhood, there's one memory that stands out clearly. A memory of a sky so blue it may as well be from a movie, and of white clouds flinging themselves at me with frightening speed. Before what happened at the flowering arboretum, I liked playgrounds so much. It was almost weird. My mom said I would go out in the morning and play at the playground until nighttime. What I liked the most was the swings. I would kick my feet hard and bring myself so close to the sky I get dizzy. I like that feeling. Exciting, but a little scary. One day I got curious about what it would be like to ride the swing all the way around. It was something none of the neighbors' kids had ever done. I told my friends to push back with all their strength, and I used my whole body to go higher and higher. The blue sky and white clouds rushed towards me, and the highest point, I was overcome by vertigo, and I fell off the swing. I opened my eyes and I was laying in the sand. I had a handful of sand in my mouth, and my knees were scraped and bleeding, but strangely didn't hurt. I was just mad that I hadn't managed to swing all the way around. We all wanted to do that as kids. Like, it was like the king of the playground. Y'all remember that episode of Recess where it was like, the swinging girl gonna swing around or something? And then she disappeared one day, but it was just because she was sick. I don't know. I remember how I looked riding the swing, like I'm borrowing it from other people's memories. Maybe that Park Jimin who swung that intently is growing up somewhere, I don't know, looking just like that, with just that personality. I looked at the swing with those thoughts in my mind, and then I heard my mom calling me. I headed towards the school doors, Songju Middle School. It was the 5th school I'd attended. So this must be when he's going to the middle school before he actually meets the boys and stuff like that. This is his experience with going there for the first time. Okay. Alright, next we're going to do Taehyung, version 1, the first note, April 11th, year 22. I drew a line of black spray paint, a thin face, a mouth that had lost its words, dry hair. In crude lines, I started to draw the face I had seen in my dreams on the gray wall. Now it was time to draw the pupils. I reached out and stopped and took a step back. In my head, the face was clear. The pupils were so definitive, they gave me goosebumps. I just don't know how to express them. They were eyes from which all the emotions, like happiness or sadness, had disappeared, leaving behind only disinterest and coldness. They were many colors, and one color crushed together. Eyes that said nothing, and in doing so, said everything. I gripped the spray can several times, but in the end, I couldn't draw the pupils. It had been 2 years since I last saw Seok Jin-hyung. I heard he had gone to America, but besides that, I didn't know anything. This was the first time I dreamed about him. I had sometimes wondered how he was doing. I thought about what happened in the classroom when Hyung had called the principal. I had good memories of him and things I didn't understand, but he had never once been as cold and gaunt as he had appeared in my dream. Okay, so maybe it was a different reality where Jim was like, maybe if I just try to go back to LA, everything will be fine? I don't know. I looked up again at the face I'd drawn on the wall. It was clearly Seok Jin-hyung, but it wasn't the Hyung I knew. Why had I had a dream like that all of a sudden? The dream had been anxious and terrible scenes over and over. Hyung had watched all of those misfortunes happen with an expressionless face. My hand shook as it held the spray can. I felt the chill from that dream was grabbing me by my neck again. From the distance, I heard a police siren. Oh, that's it. And then started a police siren. Okay, damn. Run, bitch, run. Like, hello. All right, next one is a second note from version 1, April 30th, year 20, Taehyung. The shock made me momentarily unable to move. Seok Jin-hyung was sitting inside the car. I'd heard from Namjoon Hyung that he was back, but this was the first time I'd seen his face. Hyung was frowning as he searched for something with a cell phone. That in itself didn't seem strange. No part of his face seemed different than before. I couldn't explain the reason why I was so shocked. Cold, dry, empty. None of those words were enough to express Hyung's face. No, it wasn't even close to the same. It was a spring day. spring day. But a chill passed by me. Despite myself, I shivered. Hyung had appeared in my dream with exactly that face. I only lifted my head when Jungkook came around the corner. Jungkook looked around with an urgent expression, then ran across the alley. At that moment, Hyung gave an irritated gesture and got out of the car. I couldn't hear from a distance, but it seemed from the shape of his lips that he was muttering, "Whatever, forget it." As he took a few steps towards the motel, a short distance away, he looked in the direction that Jungkook had run, dropping something at the entrance as he did. Is that at Suga's place? No, I don't know. He's just leaving clues out. We know that. We know that. That's Jin's job. That's Jin's duty. Jin duty. Alright, our last Tae note is from the third version, June 7th, year 20. Dumb mongrel, couldn't wait for just a second? We had searched the whole neighborhood but couldn't find Dubu. When I checked the time, 20 minutes had passed. How far could a 2-month-old puppy have gone in 20 minutes? Did the puppy have something to do with it for real? I was sweating in the hot summer sun. I had called for him until my throat was sore and dry. Girl, same. In the moment I had checked my phone, he had slipped his leash. When I looked around, Dubu was gone. I started to run again. I looked in every alleyway and checked inside every open door. Dubu, I called a loud voice. Only passerbys looked at me. As I ran, I berated Dubu, calling him a stupid puppy. I even got angry and said it was just a mongrel. But even in that moment, I knew that it wasn't Dubu's fault. It was mine. I had looked away. I had been paying attention and had gotten loose. I had been laughing at some unimportant conversation and hadn't even known Dubu was gone. Had Dubu run away on purpose? At the thought, I came to a stop despite myself. Maybe Dubu didn't like being with me. To me, living with him was a good thing, but to him, maybe it was nothing more than being separated from his family. I don't look out like that today. The next moment I heard a patter of feet and the sound of Dubu barking. At first I thought I was imagining it, but it was no hallucination or imagination. And I saw Dubu running down the alley. The puppy's ears were flying back and his mouth was open in the efforts of running up the hill. "Dubu!" I shouted, and when I kneeled down, he ran straight towards me. "Where did you go? How did you come back? Did you remember how I smell?" As he started to lick my cheek from within my embrace, a strange feeling welled up in me. I'm the only person Dubu can rely on. I can be reliable for someone too. I can be somewhere he'll come back to. Dubu squirmed out of my arms, but I only held him closer. It's the same thing with Yoongi and the bird. It's like, if you have somebody that's looking up to you, Penelope, yeah, I'm talking to you, girl, then it's hard to know, like, that gives you a reason to continue on, you know. All right, our last set of notes here is Jungkook. This is version 1, July 24th, year 22. Congratulations, Jungkook was written on the side of the container, but that wasn't the atmosphere at all. The air inside the container was full to burst with a strange anxiety. Looking back, it had always been like that recently. So Jin-young went outside in a moment. Taehyung People say that? Why have I never had to say that? Taehyung. Taehyung followed in a hurry, and the other Hyungs did too, exchanging glances. Taehyung said something, but it didn't seem that Sok Jin-hyung was listening. From behind all the Hyungs, I watched Sok Jin-hyung get in his car. The car reversed easily, then sped off. The light from inside the container skimmed over its frame. The mark of an accident on the bumper were briefly visible before they were covered by the darkness. What was strange was that seeing all of this felt like nothing. Even if it were a confirmation of what I already knew, it seemed that in front of a hard truth, I might feel something complicated or at least be shocked, but in reality, it wasn't like that. The sight of Sok Jin-hyung's car disappearing into the darkness was overlaid by the image of the headlights that had come toward me that night. The feeling of my body floating, the moment of being unable to swallow or breathe, the seizure of terror that had shaken my whole body, the unbelievable chill I had felt as my consciousness scattered, the shadow of death, the marks of the accident on that car's bumper. I went inside the container, I sat down and looked up at Jimin Hyung's hand, writing, spelling out congratulations, Jungkook. Suddenly, I felt an ache in the leg I had hurt in the accident. The Hyungs didn't even think about coming inside. They were talking about something I didn't know. Include him, that poor boy's been through enough. Alright, the next one is also from version 1, Jungkook, July 26th, year 22. When I came to my senses, I was at the bus stop. I looked back to see how far I had walked, but the hospital was already out of sight. I waited for the bus and then boarded. It was a bus to that place. I hadn't planned it, but maybe I already knew in my heart that I had to go back to that place. I had to know the meaning of what happened there. I looked out of the window at the passing summer weather and thought to myself, could I trust the Hyungs? Oh, yes, you can. When I got off the bus, it drove off right away. A cloud of dust swirled up. I walked slowly towards the site of the accident. I thought about that night. The huge moon hanging in the sky, the world upside down, the headlights that came toward me in the reversed vision, the shape of the car that passed me and disappeared, the lights of the tail lamps, an engine sound that seemed somehow familiar. I laid on the asphalt just like that night. Why? I tilted my head and looked up at the sky. It was getting dark, but I couldn't see the moon. It was a quiet street, but if a car were to come, they might not see me, and I could have another accident. Yes, exactly, another accident. As I thought that, I asked myself once again if I could trust the Youngs. Who could I trust? You could trust them all. Mainly Sugar. He's just going through something right now. Okay, please. Alright, y'all, the last note we're going to be reading today is from Jungkook, May 2nd, year 21, the year before. I raced towards the Yangjishan riverbank as the sunset deepened, pressing heavily on the bike pedals as I headed toward a sky full of mixed pinks and purples made me feel as if I were escaping from the weight of my everyday life. Today, too, I had taken my bike out as soon as I heard my mom start to prepare dinner. I didn't want to see anyone. My house was a place where not even one person would smile at me. Just because we lived together didn't make us family. Nothing changed just by leaving. My Youngs had left one after another, and even though we lived in the same city, it had been a long time since we contacted one another. Now there was no one left inside my house or out of it who would smile at me. I'm here, smiling for you, buddy. When the sun was gone, but the moon hadn't risen yet, darkness settled down on the riverbank. The scenery changed depending on where I rode my bike. Past the road that had been turned into the park, there was a place full of garbage. Abandoned cars and abandoned motorbikes and tires. I leaned my bike against a pillar under the bridge and made my way down the riverbank. On the other side of the river was a group of kids lighting fires and drinking and swinging sticks around. But on this side, there was nobody. Nobody came to this kind of ruined place. Maybe that was the reason nobody came to me either. I was most comfortable like this, in a place nobody would come to find me, alone in total darkness. I thought that it would be nice if this moment never ended. Shut up! I'm gonna come find you in that junkyard, bitch, and I'll be like, surprise, remember how you did that to Tay? When Tay was trying to walk to go visit his mom and you was like, oop, surprise, bitch, just got in an accident, but I'm gonna follow you for 30 miles while we walk. Haha, that's me, okay? You don't get a choice, I'm doing it. Okay, everybody, so that was the HYYH The Notes persona, Map of the Soul persona. I'm gonna have to go through all these notes. It's really hard to read and really think too hard on camera here. So as I'm reading them aloud, I'm getting my like initial connections, but I'm gonna go down and really study them soon, put them into order of our timeline and see if we can work out something in this. Because like, I felt like some new stuff was added, but it doesn't usually jump out at me until like the second or third time I read it. Anyway, I know this is a long video. I'll put them all together this time too because, like I said, these aren't the most watched videos, but I like to do it for me, so I don't care. If you made it this far, I want to say thank you so much. I appreciate you so much for all the support and everything. Not a lot of people make it this part, and if you did, just know you have my love. Like, really, you can have my heart, kind of. I've been watching too much Game of Thrones, and people don't give hearts to people. Okay, anyway, I love y'all. I'll be back soon with more videos, but until then, make sure you click subscribe, like, and comment if you made it this far. Bye! Would love to know them by name. So